afternoon. Many thanks to the organizers for having me here. I just want to share the past 10 years experience in PPPs project with you. Unfortunately, they have not been fortunate, none of them. These are boards, these are PPPs that came into being in countries like Romania, Hungary, Greece, Serbia, Montenegro, which had been under communist rules for many years. So you could call them a post-conflict in a way. So they are developing economies, and they start experimenting years ago into PPPs. Most of them did not take off the ground, unfortunately, because PPP is a complex project delivery system that needs to be handled properly by professionals. Whether of the small size or the large size, the complexities are there because there are many parts involved. So they are long-term, there are too many entities involved, and the amount of risks and risk sharing is really different from traditional method or project delivery system. So they need to be handled properly, and it's very expensive, even tendering. If you have just a medium-sized motorway project of $1 billion, the tender cost to a contractor can be anything between $2 to $8 million. Now, at procurement level, you know, there is always a very large risk, and that is the one that sovereign guarantees in the end that cannot be provided by the government. And what happens is that the contractor loses all this money in these tenders, the project does not go on, and basically it's a disappointment for everybody, and the PPP has kind of been put on one side in most of these countries. I think in these instances, World Bank and any other development bank may play a major role in future in order to help the project financing entities to be comfortable that there is a major bank behind the scheme, and obviously they can take the chance to finance the project. This will resolve the first issues why nearly 90% of these PPPs in Eastern Europe did not go, did not go to fruition. They just stopped at procurement level, and the contractor just lost an enormous amount of money. The few that went on, unfortunately, did not go well. They were all fraught with delays, an enormous amount of disputes between the parties. And my firm and my professional interest in this dictated that we had to try to find out what happened. In some of them, we were involved from procurement in advising either the government or the project company or the general contractor. In some others, we were advising the bank or the insurers. So we start cataloging, the reasons why they didn't work, these PPPs, and realized that the major reason was lack of communication. Simple reasons, isn't it? But it is, because it is the mother of all disputes. Lack of communication, miscommunication, that's what happened. Nobody talks to anybody. Now, I have been, with my firm, a major user of dispute adjudication board over the years. I act as counsel for many contractors in dispute adjudication referrals, and I follow projects where the dispute adjudication board are placed within a very little time after commencement date. Now, these projects, they all get disputes because it's the nature of the beast, it's construction, there's nothing that can be done about it. But with the use of the DABs in a project delivery system like the design and build, the EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction. They reduce the number of disputes. Very seldom they go to arbitration. And the parties, one way or another, need to communicate, because the dispute adjudication board will make them communicate, because they will hold meetings regularly. They are aware of what's going on the ground, and they are able, to bring community interest in through the opinion, option that is open to the parties. You can ask an informal opinion. And this informal opinion, they are not subject to any, privilege or confidentiality. They can be discussed with the communities, and in most time, the parties think about it, and they sit down and they say, okay, let's get on with it. I'm going to give you this, you give me that, and we move on. So you don't need to refer. Now, I felt, okay, is this just an Eastern Europe issue? Or is something else that can happen in other countries as well? So we were luckily involved in the PPPs in Cork, in Ireland, and a ton of PPPs in Germany. I mean, Germany, very developed country. I mean, how can go wrong a PPP there? I mean, with a German precision and everything, it went awfully wrong. So we said, it must be a European thing, so we're just not good at communicating. Now, I have been involved with a friend of mine. His name is Philip Adams. He's a very famous construction lawyer in Adelaide, in Australia. And, we started exchanging notes. I said, listen, it's just something that we Europeans don't know how to do. Maybe the multi-ethnicity, so many languages. We think that we're the first world and we're better than everybody else. So what it is? I says, how's it going there? And he said, mate, it's a nightmare. I said, why? I said, nobody talks to anybody. We're about 20 of them, fraught with disputes, fraught with delays. The insurers sues the contractor sues the project company, and the project company has got no money in it. It's just a project company. And then the bankers sues everybody. And then they stop working because the informations were wrong. The internal rate of return doesn't work. And pretty much what happened in Greece. In Greece, they went over, luckily, the procurement stage. They started, they built the motorways, they put them into live functions, and then the bank, after 3 years, terminated everything because they were not getting the money, because the informations were wrong. The internal rate of return of 12.3, 12.4, which was a breaking even point, was not even at 3%. So it was, somehow a reassurance, but what reassurance? I mean, even in Australia, on the other side of the world, they didn't work. Now, I asked what happened, and we start identifying that most of these PPPs, in their contracts and in the guides of the various institutions that have been involved, Rexim and things like that, there were every method of dispute resolution that you can dream of, okay, except dispute adjudication board. Nobody talked about it. And I mean, there are two organizations, two worldwide organizations, like the DRBF, which is the largest, the DBF, which is the second largest. And, they do everything in their powers for the past 20 years to educate communities, major banks, contractors, engineers, employers about the benefits of the use of DRBs, DABs. They all have, in a certain environment, a useful use. And unfortunately, in all of these PPPs that I was involved, there were no dispute adjudication board, no dispute review boards. So me and Phil, we arrived to the conclusion that after having followed nearly 60 projects over the past 20 years of the traditional and non-traditional project delivery system, the reason why these PPPs, mainly the few that went to construction and went into live use of the infrastructure that was done, of the facilities, the problems that were encountered, which are common to everyone, could have been resolved with dispute adjudication boards. And that is what we are doing now. We are going around the world and we are talking to everyone, and the World Bank finally, and I have a lot of respect for the World Bank since I was in Africa 30 years ago, has been always a bank that cares more. EIB, EBRD, all the others, they give the money, but they leave them there. The World Bank goes there and finds out how you spend this money, and that is something very important. And that's is the reason why I was very pleased, honored to come here today at the World Bank, because finally the largest bank in the world has realized that something needs to be done about it. PPPs are important for the people, especially now that the industry everywhere in Europe, except the Middle East that is booming and so forth, but everything everywhere else there is no cash, there is no money. Europe is in one of the worst, downfall in the history of humanity, and it's going to take years and years before it will get better. Now, what do? You need PPPs. You need banks like the World Bank that are able to breach the issue of lack of sovereign guarantees, but more than anything else, you need to make sure that the people that in the end will pay for that are well served. And one way of doing this is by dispute avoidance. How do you do that? Dispute adjudication boards. Thank you.